Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to continuation of our project on designing a derby shoe. So we stopped at creating the mean form. After you've created that mean form, the next thing that remains for you to do is to transfer the design that you did initially onto that mean form. So after which you will cut out the different pieces of the pattern, which exactly is what I'm doing at the moment. So I cut out the wing tip, then right about now I'm cutting out the counter, which is the back of the shoe. I'm just starting out with the ones that are easy to cut out, that have no frills or issues. Then the facing is a bit tricky. As you can see, when we talked about derbies, we mentioned that the vamp goes underneath the facings. So if I had cut out the facing straight from the mean form, I would have cut out the tongue part of the vamp that should go underneath that facing. So so basically what I did was to mark out the tongue part first and then cut it out before I go ahead to cut out the facings. So this is the part of the vamp that gets connected to the wingtip or the capto that bears the tongue, on top of which the facings will go. So right about now it's to cut out the facings. So you have to bear in mind that there's a curve around the facings, and when you're cutting out the facings, it's also prudent at that time to mark out your lace holes, your lacing holes, so that you don't have to come back and try to recalculate them when you are set for that. So add your lace holes and punch them out, and add just make marks on where you expect them to be, basically. Okay, so having cut out all of the pattern pieces, it's time to reassemble them and find out. You see what I meant when I said the facings goes on top of the vamp? So that's it right there. So having cut out all of the pattern pieces, what remains to be done is to start doubling them up to get the real pattern pieces. So for the capto, it's pretty straightforward. You fold a piece of cardboard and just cut it out along the lines that you have cut. So you cut it out along the lines that you have cut, always bearing in mind to cut out your feather edge marks so that it serves as a guide for you when you are cutting out. Now, a tricky part is the part that bears the curve on the last, is the part where you have to spring the vamp. Now this is a method of springing the vamp. If you notice, on that curve you could have two straight lines that join each other. So you draw the straight line on the first, from the front part of it, and then draw a line from where it intersects with the curve. Find the middle of that line, mark out that middle, and then fold a piece of cardboard. So you lie the front part straight on your cardboard and basically draw the curve of of the pattern to the point where that curve meets the middle of that your line. Then you draw the curve and then straighten out the back part until it lies parallel straight on your curve, and then you simply complete the entire process and draw it out. This way you have been able to straighten out that curve while still maintaining the dimensions of your pattern. This entire process is one of the most important processes of creating shoe patterns, and it is called springing the vamp. So if you do it correctly, you would have correctly sprung the vamp. What remains to be done is to add your stitching allowances, as I have done, and then cut out the rest of the pattern pieces. So you cut notches to give you. Okay, also don't forget to mark the points where the facing will be sewn onto the vamp. Then you cut out the rest of the notches. So we're good to go with that part of the vamp. The facing is pretty straightforward. It falls on a straight line. There are no curves to spring. So you simply just fold a piece of cardboard, trace it out, and simply just mark it out and cut it out. Also, don't forget to add your folding allowance. The folding allowance will lie on top around the opening of the shoe. You don't want a raw edge of leather around that opening of the shoe. If that's what you want, you could just skip it, but you add a folding allowance at that top area, and then stitching allowances where the counter, which is the back of the shoe, will fit into the pattern. Also remember to mark out your lace holes. Very important. You would always want to have well aligned straight lace holes, so it comes from the pattern process. If you correctly design and implement your lace holes, you would have it very well done on the shoe at the end. So the last part of the pattern pieces that remains to be done is the counter, which is what I'm cutting out at the moment. And once we are done with that, we'll be on our way to celebration. Yup.